Ladies and gents, welcome. We are here on Savile Row. It's a glorious morning here on Savile Row, not always the case, but I'm joined by my dear friend Aleks Cvetkovic.
Morning.
Aleks is a man that I've learnt a great deal about clothing over the years from. He worked at the Rake while I was at Revolution. And today we're talking to the CEO of Huntsman on Savile Row, Mr. Taj Full, and the CEO of Parmigiani, Mr. Guido Terreni. So do join us. Let's get into it, Al.
Let's do it.
Fantastic, guys, welcome. This is a special one. We are, believe it or not, it looks like we're in our hunting estate. It's not my hunting estate up in Scotland. We are on the first floor here at Savile Row on Huntsman on Savile Row. And I'm delighted to be joined by some great friends for an informal conversation. We're in the process of talking about the things we love, which are unfortunately wide-reaching. So before we dive into the conversation proper, we have to get out of the way. And I was asking the guys before, in the menswear world, is it a thing? Is it a dumb thing to ask what you're wearing? Taj, we have to touch on what you're wearing, because you are wearing a very special suit.
Thank you. Touch is the right word, because it's the only way to describe it. So I'm wearing a Scabau pure 100% Vicuna cloth, and obviously made in-house by Huntsman in our house style. So yeah, for me this was quite special. I got it for my 40th birthday from the guys next door. And they quite generously gifted me a lovely length of cloth. And I think when we talk about the rarity of Vicuna, I don't know what the rarity in the watch world would be from a similarity perspective, but you're looking at Scabau only producing around about 100 metres of fabric a year, of which I take slightly more, 4 metres. But it is as rare as cloth gets. Rarer than alligator, you could almost say. And CITES. Takes 60 days to get it in the country, so also hard to get into the country as well. So yeah, no, it's special, and people will say it's similar to cashmere, but it's just that next level up. And I think when you want to talk about exclusivity, when you're wearing Vicuna, that is as good as it gets, really, to be honest.
How does it make you feel? I guess that's the big question of today: is how does a suit make you feel? How does a watch make you feel?
The watch makes me feel great. I think there's a degree of, Guido and I were talking about this the other day, and when we talk about what a watch does for an outfit, I think sometimes with a suit it's just more about the cut. Fabric-wise, you can look incredible in a really average fabric if the suit is made correct. You can look terrible in a Vicuna suit if it's not made correct. So I think it's more about the make process, which is why obviously Huntsman made is really key to that.
Fantastic. Guido, what are you wearing on the wrist?
I'm wearing a Toric Petit Second in platinum, which is probably our interpretation of what elegance should be on the wrist nowadays, and it's very special to me, because I think that the synthesis of what we're trying to do is that more and more luxury is becoming not about how much money you have, but what you do with the money that you have. And this is a very subtle line, because it elevates the experience from a quantitative experience to a qualitative experience. And quality means education, means understanding, means a way to understand the why of things. And as Taj described his beautiful sensation, I can say it on our interpretation is to be expressing something, to be able to complement your persona, because I always say a watch is an accessory. Everybody is thinking about something so powerful that it defines you. No, you are you, and the watch is complementing you. Whether it's a $1 million piece or a $50,000 piece, it doesn't matter, but it's a personal choice. It's a very intimate choice, and we are tickling that quest for details that we call sartorialism approach to watchmaking, and we'll speak about this, I guess, in the next hour.
Well, that's a little teaser, because there are so many links between the watchmaking world and the tailoring world. Aleks, we have to ask before we do come to that jacket, sir. People are going to be asking in the comments, what is that jacket?
Well,
when was that made? Where was that made? What is it made of?
I'm here repping Huntsman. Naturally, this is one of Huntsman's house tweeds, which I love. I've had this jacket for something like 5 or 6 years now, which again I think speaks to kind of the enduring quality of good tailoring. And I absolutely adore it. Really, really fabulous weighty Scottish tweed. Again, Huntsman house style. Little nerdy tidbit is this lapel, I believe, is called the hammock lapel, because it references a very famous Huntsman cutter from the 70s, and the gorge line, which is the line of the lapel, slopes downwards, which is a very 70s thing. But I absolutely adore it, and actually, it despite being quite a sort of a warm, solid tweed, I find it fabulously easy to wear. I wear it almost all year round. I love it, and I always feel very sort of aristocratic when I wear it, which I rather like.
Don't stand against the wallpaper because you're
Well,
blaming too much.
That is a photo. That's a photo for later.
We're going to do that later.
I've come with the wallpaper. It's great.
In some respects, the opposite. From a wearability perspective, that's something that I would imagine you keep for a lifetime. From a wearability perspective,
Totally.
You may not get as many wears out of that.
Yeah. But I think something else that's kind of interesting here is you have, a very, very timeless blue suit that in terms of styling is as versatile as it gets, and people will often look at a jacket like this and think, God, I don't know how to dress that. But actually the jacket's doing the work for you, because you can look at any colour in it and bring something out. So there's grey, but there's also taupe, there's red, there's green, there's 2 different shades of blue. So there's something really quite nice in being able to pull all this out. And if I do that, for today, the man is ready. For today only, we've got one of the things I thought was really beautiful about this is you've got this gorgeous kind of taupe dial, and it really pulls out the taupe in the check. So sort of feeling very smug about how I've put this all together.
And we have not planned this, but that's the perfect segue into a conversation around colours, because for me, Guido, one of the things, you've been at Parmigiani now for 4 or 5 years, coming up to 5 years, and anyone who's kept an eye on the brand will know there's been a very sharp adjustment product-wise. Yep. But for me, one of the big things has been colour. I feel that you and the team are incredibly sensitive to shades of softness in colour, is the way I would describe it. I mean, I'm wearing a sienna dial here, so-called sienna dial here, which some might mistake, in the watch world, it might get branded as salmon, it might get branded as sand colour, dune colour. I'm not quite sure what colour it is. It's slightly different in different lights. But that is a distinctive note I would touch on from your tenure within Parmigiani Fleurier currently.
Well, of course, the palette of colors that we are building, because it takes time to build a palette, you need to launch a watch, so you can't do everything in the same moment. But it seems like this year people understood that there is a palette, because now we have sufficient amount of colors that they speak to each other. So it's part of a mood. It's part of something that is defining a style. Watchmaking is a very complicated culture. You have like a left brain and a right brain in the watch industry. The right brain is the rational part, the one that makes everything work, the technical side, and the creative side is the other side. You have creativity also in technique, but there is a special word that I adore in horology, which is called habillage. Habillage, habiller in English, in French it means to dress. Et habillage are all the components that are not the movement. So you can understand that everything that is dressing the movement is in a second standpoint. First you have the movement, like a car has the engine, and then you build everything around. So this tells you that aesthetic is at the service of technique in Swiss watchmaking culture. We are trying to make these 2 brains complement each other, and in a way where the aesthetic is what hooks a customer, and colors are part of that. But a watch is meant to outlive you. You shouldn't be selling your watch, never. But somebody does. True collectors keep everything, because it's their story, it's their era. You look back like pictures of your life, and you have a section of your life where you like something, then you don't like it anymore, and you like it again. And it's a lot of collectors do that, and they keep it. So if you're choosing a color, you can't choose a color which will fade in time, which will worn you out. So these colors have the common theme of being very serene, being a moment of calm when you look at your dial, which is, you're looking really for 2 hands to tell the time. But those 2 hands, they have to have a background, that they have to allow it to be seen properly, to be easing the moment in which you read the time, for the beauty and for the function. And the colors are there to stay. So it's really a choice which is part of a pleasure that cannot be overdone, because otherwise it warns you out. And we took inspiration from architecture. Think about architects that have to decorate a home. You don't change the color of your living room every 6 months because you get fed up. So based on architecture, there is a palette of colors born in 1931, almost 100 years. That's our mood board. It comes from Le Corbusier, which is an architect at the origin of purism. And he studied colors affecting the mood of the people living in their houses. And those colors seems they were designed today. And we don't literally take those colors one by one, but it's a sort of mood board because those colors pass the test of time. And we apply our sensitivity based on the fact that you have to also wear, as Alex, you were saying, you have to have colors that are easy to match, because you don't really think every morning what watch you're going to wear. You might think what time I'm going to wear, what suit I'm going to put. The watch usually stays for a long period of time. So it's a very intimate choice, and it's the most thoughtful thing you have to think of when you're developing a watch. But it is a less thoughtful thing that a man, in the morning he wakes up, he just takes his watch and puts his watch on, unless you're a collector that you have a watch for every hour. But the majority of people use a watch for an extended period of time.
I love your thought, Guido, about sort of the left brain and the right brain of watchmaking, and actually allowing guys to fall in love with a watch, you know, aesthetically first, before sort of getting down to kind of the technical specs. Because I'm obviously, you know, a fashion journalist. I love watches. I know when I see a watch that I like and I respond to as a piece of design, but and this is a shocking thing to say on a watch channel, I have very, very little knowledge of, or actually interest in, what goes on beneath. I just know that I want a beautiful thing on the wrist that kind of represents me, and to your point, actually expresses a bit of sense of self. So I think one of the things that I connected with the Toric is just, it's a very pure expression of kind of an aesthetic approach to watchmaking.
Yeah, but even if you are not interested in the why and the mechanics of it, if you wind this is a mechanical watch, okay, manually winded. That's the most elegant way to do a mechanism, because the rotor would have covered the bridges and the finishing. So true horology, the most elegant horology usually is manually winded. And movements are in gold. So you have the thickness, the lust of the material, which is reflecting the light in a more powerful way. You can go deeper in the finishings, and you play with that. But there's a sensational thing. When you try to wind your crown, you take your watch, but take it off as you would do it in the morning.
Let's do it.
Should we have a quick? I don't know if you can hear it on the mic, but for me, the sound is so important.
Yeah, but you won't hear it, because it's so flawless, the mechanic, that you feel nothing.
Yeah.
So when you don't feel any teeth of the transmission inside, that's a flawless mechanic.
It is a glorious thing.
You associate quality of the watch almost.
Of course, and the crown is big, because when you want to rewind your watch, you want to feel the crown, and you want to feel the sensation. So these are all things. You were saying you touch a suit first before looking at it. There's a sensitive feeling in winding a mechanical watch, and if this crown were smaller, you wouldn't have that pleasure. These are all things you won't know about them if I don't bring you into my world.
The old VW advert,
and you will notice it the next time.
Yeah.
Why do we have a pin buckle and not a dipline buckle? If you want to, you put all this effort in the movement. You don't want a blade in the middle of your eyes to look through it. You want to open it up and enjoy.
That's really interesting. That is, I never thought of that. I'm a watch guy, so I'm watch and tailoring, and I never actually thought of that. And I have manual, I have automatic, I have deployment, and I like deployment class just because of the ease and functionality of wearing a deployment class. But I never actually thought of a pin buckle.
Suit first or watch first in the morning?
Watch.
There we go.
That's cool.
Do you know what? Funny enough, I am as well.
Yeah.
And then the outfit's built on top of that.
Yeah.
Because for me, I mean, I'm in a position where, okay, there's a box of a few, but it's that mood. You're picking that mood out
Yeah.
and then the clothing kind of follows.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
I'd say because my wardrobe's 85% navy. So I think it's a bit hard for me to pick out a navy suit and then do a watch. For me, it's. I think
why is that, Tash? Why is that?
I think it depends what I'm doing in the day.
You're surrounded by the most incredible colours. You've got clients coming in every day saying, "Hey, I want this lining that's got photos of the family in it." The dog in the inside. But you're navy.
Timeless.
You're navy.
I think it's practicality. I think you can walk into. There's always things I always say about never being overdressed. And we was talking about etiquette and things like black tie. I feel like you can never be overdressed. You can take off a tie if you walk somewhere and no one's got. Sorry, you're wearing a t-shirt. I knew.
I've done it specifically just to be clear because I knew it would be divisive. and we are going to touch on the modern take on tailoring and the sense for me of comfort that comes from actually being a little bit less formal. Even though I was in Versailles this week. Little name drop there, which doesn't happen very often for dinner. But I did feel a little bit underdressed, actually, which I was not comfortable, actually.
Yeah. So I've just done the F1 this weekend, and I did it in a suit jacket every day, in a lounge where everyone was wearing either traditional outfit or t-shirts and trousers. And I think it's one of those things where then everyone commented to the point of where David Beckham had gone past me, and he went, "Someone in a jacket, thankfully." And that's David Beckham making that kind of suggestion to you. And I think there's just an importance when you're wearing something, again, that's well made and well cut. People appreciate that fitting well. And you can just never be overdressed, in my opinion. So for me, the watch is always one. I think it's a degree of where I'm going to. If I'm in London, I won't wear certain watches. But I think it is the watch first for me. And it has been probably more so in the latter part of my years as my watch collection's grown and pieces like that. But for me, there'll be days when I want to wear a world timer, or I just want to wear a sports watch, or just something quite easy.
Because that does dictate. I mean, not that you are adjusting your outfit so much, but to me, it's like, okay, if you're wearing the world timer, then that sort of takes you on a path down a particular combo for that day. Yeah. If it's a time only, like this is the definitive time only sort of dress watch. Yeah. Versus something like this, which has a sportier connotation to it. Yeah. Alex, I'm still in shock, by the way. I'm sorry, I'm struggling to digest things here because I'm still in shock. You said fashion journalist. And to me, you've always said, and I think we're all in the same boat here, about sort of a perennial appreciation of perennial items, a navy blue Huntsman suit, a Toric Parmigiani time only. That's not going out of fashion. Are you actually in fashion, or are you in? Because you are not.
That's a great point. I use it because it's a convenient term that people kind of broadly understand, right? But I tend to write on craft and luxury if I'm going to sort of blow my own trumpet. But where my brain was going on that note is, shall we talk a little bit about kind of elegance versus relevance and the kind of tension that can exist between the two. This is obviously a very, very elegant expression of a watch. Huntsman is a very, very elegant expression of a tailoring house, a Savile Row tailoring house. Yeah. What to you both kind of makes being elegant and producing very beautiful, carefully crafted, elegant objects important and relevant today?
For us, again, the timelessness approach comes. So we would always guide a customer through the process of someone walks in, he or she might want a pink suit, and it's like, what's it for? Understand the occasion, is there an occasion? For us, we were saying to Guido earlier, was the house style was something that we want to reflect as your first suit. And I think the importance of that reflects, when you mention you are wearing Huntsman, I almost feel like you can see someone wearing Huntsman. High armhole, really cinched waist, slightly longer in the jacket, slanted pockets, it shows all of our heritage right the way through. For me, I think having the certain, if I answer this correctly, the correct wardrobe, and you do it in a stage. So when customers come into us, they'll be like, what's the first options I should go for? Yeah. Navy suit, navy jacket, grey trouser. Versatility is there. Or you mix it, you switch to navy for a grey suit, depending on colour. I don't own one grey suit. And it's just one of those things, I think people gravitate towards certain colours. Yeah. And for me, it's always been navy and green.
And there is this kind of mix of almost, I suppose, the codes of elegance versus personal expression. again, right? I could tell you pick up on that. Taj doesn't have a grey suit. Shock horror. But yeah, either it works for you or not. I mean, I tend not to wear, I do wear grey, but I tend not to. I tend to wear a dark brown because I find for my skin tone like a chocolate or it works better than a kind of harsh grey.
Yeah. There should be a better process though in tailoring, I think, in the sense that, I'm not saying from the brand side, but actually from the individual side, to know your own style in the sense that what works for you. I would find it quite relieving to know, hey, just if someone said, if I came in and saw you, Taj, and you were like, just listen, the 3 colours that work for you are these 3. Like, you shouldn't be messing around, and I could well have messed around today, and it's not worked. But I almost feel like that is something that I would appreciate as a consumer. Yeah. And on the watch side, sizing is one of those things that I think people are in the process of getting their heads around. Because I don't know necessarily that most people appreciate what the right size for them is. It keeps me up at night, by the way. Case size is that
lugs and
it's all of the numbers don't tell the full truth. No. You see that being written in a story, and it's like, okay, it looks good on them, but what is the right size for me? A bit like what is the right colour suit for me? That's something that keeps me up at night.
I have a personal take on this because we are in a nerdy world. And pass me the expression where somebody needs to quantify elegance. You cannot quantify what is the right size. Depends on the wrist you have. If you have a small wrist, a big wrist, it depends how it fits. No? And depends the look that you want to, or the feeling you want to have. You want to have a vintage mood on your wrist, probably you go on a smaller size. You want to sort of have that philosophy, but the size doesn't speak the truth because it depends on where the lugs are placed, it depends on the opening of the dial, it depends on the fit. So there's plenty of things. So I'm not into sizes. In the elegance is proportions. The elegance is fitting on the persona, as we said. So I don't think Michael Jordan with a 36 will be as elegant as with a 40, probably. It depends on its proportions. But I want to pick on your question before, because working on an object that is supposed to outlive you, we have a different life cycle of the object. No? A suit, even if it's well made, if you wear it, it wears out at a certain point. You have to, unfortunately, separate yourself from it. But in a watch, more than fashion, like we think the business of fashion is, I'm much more interested in the societal evolution of fashion, which is this is the big theme that goes through generations, no? And then it's like the sea. You have the waves on the surface, and you have all the how do you say the
white horses, the ripple,
and then you have the long-lasting movement beneath. That's what's building your unconscious, your way of evolving. And when we tackled the dress watch in 2024, we started in 2022. There are plenty of dress watches in the industry. I always say you don't need another watch. There are plenty. So if you are launching a watch, you have to have something to say. Which is your take? What do you want to say? What's your meaning, your purpose of doing this? And we looked at the dress watches in the history of watchmaking, and it's very recent because it's only 100 years that the watch is on the wrist.
Yeah.
Already, that is a big take, because when it's visible, it's not in the pocket. It has to complement your outfit. It has to complement your style, your persona, as we said before. And there's a big disruptive moment when you put the watch on the wrist, because the wrist becomes much more minimal. It becomes much more Puritan in the way of seeing this. But going back to what Taj was saying, the colors also play a very important part. And up to a certain moment in our society, Western society, because we think about we are ruling the world. No, it's only one part of the world that dresses like us, especially 100 years ago, and that was very strict. First of all, because we are in probably the heart of Western civilization in terms of of menswear. It's all
This
born
is
here.
it, yeah.
This is it. Okay, we are at the center of cultural movement of 200 years. Okay, so the three-piece suit that comes from, we were talking with Taj about the heritage of a cut, of where it's born, which is the signature of the Huntsman, where it comes from. But in a way, colors were very severe. Black was probably the most prestigious because it was the last to be fixed on the cloth.
Yep.
So it faded. Only affluent people could wear black because it became gray very quickly. And that's the origin of a dinner attire, very formal, with a white shirt. Because yes, bourgeoisie is a working class, but intellectual working class. You're there to build a wealth, to build a company, to build whatever your legacy. So you need to be very reliable in the decisions you make. That's why menswear is very constant. It's not frivolous. It stays for decades, no? And so you can evolve from a Napolitan cut or a Milanese cut or all the cuts that you have in England with which the creativity and the heritage that comes from military or everything there. And the dinner attire is black and white. When the watch exits the pocket, and the pocket watch was still a reference to aristocracy, because in the 19th century, the bourgeoisie wasn't noble, and they had the aspirations of being aristocratic. So the watch was a reference to a world that they aspired to, and it was very baroque. It didn't fit with this outfit. It was a lot of handcrafted work, and beautiful objects, very, very rich in their creativity. When it comes in the 20s, in the 10s and the 20s on the wrist, black glossy alligator strap to fit the glossy shoes, white dial to fit the shirt. That's it.
Right.
Simple movement because simplicity is elegance.
Yeah.
Going back to Lord Bramwell, when he used to say 250 years ago, the ultimate elegance is not to be seen, no? It's not to be noticed. That is a statement of understatement as maximum elegance. So you start seeing notes of what we're doing, no? Then you get to this beautiful moment in society, the Art Deco, which in watchmaking has been extremely generous in architecting the cases. Think about a Reverso case, think about the Calatrava case. Those are all elements that pick up on the case certain moments in history of architecture, of style. But colors are always there, same black and white, until the Second World War. After the Second World War, you start opening up. Okay, black and white attire is not the rule anymore. You can go in blue, you can go in brown. In the 50s, you start seeing blue dials. You start seeing brown alligator straps. That's the maximum twist that you can have on conservative elegance. Then something happens in the year 2000s. You have the new economy that comes, and you have a disruptive movement in masculine elegance. Streetwear becomes a way of breaking the rules. You throw away your suit, but you throw away your watch with it. You don't wear a watch. Until now, but in this very building, with the film The Kinsman, there is a cultural movement that starts from that movie. In the younger audience, when the actor, the hero at the end of the first movie exits these steps, dressed like he's dressed, it's sexy, it's cool, it looks at, now people looked up to him and said, there you go.
There he is.
There he is. And you have that looking up to dressing well again. But you don't have the same aesthetic codes as before, because you said we are less formal. There's no rules anymore. The etiquette is not there strictly to be followed, because you bring into your personal touch. But if you bring your personal touch, you cannot be outplaced. So your personal touch is not extravaganza, is not breaking the rules for the sake of being different. You're being vulgar if you're being different without putting your brain and your sensitivity to elegance. So you can bend the rules, you can twist your elegance, but you have to still fit in. You have to still express taste, which in the end money cannot buy. And that's the defining moment between a true luxury experience or a bought experience. You can buy what you wear and you spend a lot of money, or you can buy what you put on the wrist, you spend a lot of money. But if it doesn't fit with your persona, Armani used to say, it's not my dress that is beautiful, it's the woman that wears it that makes it beautiful. It's a very important sentence because everything lives on you and it's complementing you. So that's why we came up with this creativity, because the creativity is extremely contemporary in the way that the aesthetic is played, with details that are very sartorial, somewhat really sartorial, like the stitching that we put on the alligator
Can you
strap.
talk us through, Guido? Can you talk us through how you bent the rules on this Toric? What are the details that we're looking at here?
Well, first of all, it's a Parmigiani, so you have to decide what Parmigiani means. Parmigiani blends two important values that comes from the founder. Michel is a living legend of restoration. Restoration I call it the black belt of watchmaking, because you not only have to know the whole history of watchmaking, but you are repairing watches in every era. So you have to craft, the craft of movements, parts of movements. We redo in our restoration atelier. If you lose a screw, you look for it, because otherwise you have to make it, because until the end of the 19th century, screws were not standardized. It's the French that bring the numbers of the screw. So each watchmaker used to do his own screws before, and you had to redo the fillet of the screw, etc. So you go into a detail of watchmaking, which is extremely important. Movement, case, dials, all the finishings in every era. And that's the first technical knowledge. And the second is you're working on somebody else's craft. So you are not the hero here. You are bringing to life an object of somebody else. So your ego, you have this huge knowledge, this monumental skill, and you put it at the service of the customer because your passage shouldn't be seen. So that's the etymology of the understatement of the brand. So being those two values very important, we apply it in a contemporary watch. For Michel, restoration has never been about replicating the past. We're not doing a museum piece. Restoration is his source of knowledge to bring you forward, because luxury has always been about evolving excellence, until 30 years ago when brands understood that re-editing your past was selling much more than doing new things. So, but true luxury is about attention that is in sync with society, not with the season or two, but with this societal evolution that we were talking about. So colors are not anymore black, blue. They are much more fresh, but still never loud. You will never see a flashy color from Parmigiani. So the choice, the craft is artisanal. When you see a golden dial like this, brushed by hand, it's called grené main, to make the texture of the gold matte, because the light must not be shiny when the color reflects it. And when you do such a craft, it's really a brushing by hand, that a handcraft does this movement, and it gives you that artisan feeling to the movement.
Very much like the guilloche dial on this one, except
Yes.
it's done by hand. This has depth to it. This is flat.
Exactly, but that powder that you see, that grains that you see on the Toric dials are very thin. You cannot cover it with paint. So the color that you deposit is molecules, physical vapor deposition is only 2 microns to respect that craft. Even in your guilloche dials, it's the same. So these are ways of choosing, which are the ingredients you play with in architecting this watch. The soft touch that you have on the Nambook finishing of the elevator is something that goes back to what the sensation that you had touching your cloth. It's part of the sensorial sensation. Then the stitching, nobody used the stitch before in watchmaking as a graphism. It's a simple reference to masculine vanity, without being in your face. It's something that you won't even notice. But if you have that eye, you know where it comes from. It comes from tailoring. If you're educated to that.
It's funny because that was one of the things that jumped out to me actually, is just how beautiful that the sort of the top stitch is. I mean, even, you're right, there's something very wonderfully tactile about the way that the Toric kind of has been brought to life right down to the strap. I think it's beautiful.
A lot of people out there will know that His Majesty wears a Toric. That's probably, he might be the best ambassador that you've never paid. No, Parmigiani doesn't have ambassadors. He is, without a shadow of a doubt, your best ambassador, no doubt. But how do you take that design and then bring it, because you came into business, and we'll touch on heritage shortly, because this is a fascinating subject, is you had that design, it's got design language, it's got iconic aspects to it. How did you then bring that forward without disrupting too much?
You have to look into which are the aesthetic codes that are recognizable, and then you play with them. Aesthetic codes are like notes in music. It's how you put them together that makes the music. And it's the same thing here. So for sure, the nodal bezel that is on the Toric since the origin is a reference to the first piece. The second reference is that the body of the case is fatter than the bezel. Okay, so you have this extra sensorial touch that is beyond the bezel. No? So you feel
so it hangs over, it cantilevers over.
And this goes back to your question on size. So this is a 39 opening. Why is it a 39 opening? Because you want a big petite seconde. A petite seconde plays the code of classic horology. But we wanted a contemporary touch on this, so we wanted a big. If you do a small petite seconde, it goes back into the Art Deco era, it goes back into the 1950s, it goes back to a vintage look. We didn't want that. So the 39 was the minimum opening to have this petite seconde very present. The way you put the second hand has a lot to do with elegance. The petite seconde is probably the most elegant version of a three-hander. Okay, very classic, very, very sophisticated, and a nice touch that is not invasive. A central second hand is probably the most sporty version, because you need the measurement of the second, and you want it on the outside of the dial. Chronographs have a second hand which goes up to the minute scale. In between, you don't have it. We took it out because it's a perfect balance between sport and elegance. It's a sport chic watch. I always say it's more of a chic sport watch because we put more emphasis on the elegance.
But it's got a screw-down crown, which I
love.
It's
100 meter water resistance.
Which makes a big difference.
Screw downs, everything that you have there. So the opening is 39 for that reason, but it's a 40.6. Why? Because we wanted that fatty case that gives you that sensorial touch, but the lugs are very small, so they go back to a 39 opening lug. So I would say that this is a 40 that dresses 39.
Can I ask one question before we move on to you, Taj? It's just the markers, because I do find that choice of marker really fascinating.
Thank you.
Because the dial is quite sparse. It's quite sparse in the sense that it's very simple. It's not cluttered in any shape or form. But the marker, I've spent time, as sad as it is, at my desk with a loop, looking at this damn marker, and it's just really interesting because it's quite short, it's 3D, it's polished, it's got all sorts of edges and facets to it.
Well, it goes back to the brand. If you look at your watch, the micro rotor, the markers are very small and they are on the outside of the dial. You don't need markers to tell the time. 2 hands are enough. So markers are just a support in your eye to read. So by doing them small, you're opening up the dial, you're making the dial breathe more, and you can play more with the texture, and the texture becomes a qualitative sensation. So in the micro rotor, the minute scale is lower than the guilloche, and it's in sandblasted finishing to be readable, and the index is across the two. So you have a very nice movement in 2-3 millimeters. That is what a designer in watches has. It's not a car. You have to play with very little room. And on your watch, it's on the Toric.
Mine just yet.
It's the same philosophy. So the indexes are very small, as the brand statement.
Yes.
But it is a dress watch. So if you think about those dials in the 50s, in the 60s, they used to have dials that used to dive in the minute scale. No, they were flat at a certain point, and then progressively they dived into a curve, and usually you had also a glass that was also curved, and the second or minute hand was also curved. Those were called chevet dials. We first tried that, but it immediately made a vintage look to the watch. So we broke that curve in this step that you see, you have a gold that comes out from the coloring, and then you have the minute scale that is curved, and we put the index on that curve. So that is a reference to a vintage mode, reinterpreting in a contemporary way to give you that finesse, to give you that interest that comes into the equation.
I love that. I think one of the things I'm really enjoying about this conversation is, great design always looks simple, but simplicity is the hardest thing to achieve.
Absolutely.
Right, and I think that the simplicity and the purity of the Toric is just delightful. But it's also got me thinking about what you guys do, because there is so much. I mean, how it's something like 80 hours to make a suit, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
88. Yeah,
88 hours, and it's all handwork.
And it varies, I think, from garment to garment. If you're working with something like this, and I think we've got both spectrums of Huntsman. We've got the polar opposite of simplicity in terms of the cloth, and then what I'm wearing. But in terms of the finer the fabric, the handwork that goes into producing a cloth like this, the hours go up, and they go up quite quick. And that's from things like the buttonhole stitching, the internals, the way the cloths. There's a terminology, and that cutters and tailors will always say, they'll say that cloth's lively. And then all of a sudden, you know that the cost of manufacture is going to go through the roof, and then also the time scale goes through the roof. And as soon as a cutter gets a lively cloth, that cloth, when it's being cut, is moving about everywhere. The presser gets it, they press it a little bit too hard, it's stretched, it has to go back to be recut. That adds 8 to 10 hours, and that changes everything. And everything about the cloth really determines how long it takes and how, in my opinion, how sharp a suit would be. This suit would be a lot sharper if it was a 12-ounce raw steered pure wool. But just because of the nature of the cloth, you're going to get it as best as you can. And that's just simply because it moves, it stretches, it's got that, I hate to use the term elasticity to it, but it has because of the type of fibre that it is. Whereas what you're wearing, essentially, don't quote me to it because it's not, but it's bulletproof.
Yeah.
That will last 60 years.
Yeah.
And we have it in so many shapes or forms. We have a program called Inherently Sustainable. So it goes back to what you were saying, Guido, about passing down a watch during generations. Customers pass down suits.
Wow.
I was in Thailand recently. We were doing a trunk show and an event there. And a lady who was in residence walked through the lobby, saw Huntsman. She was like, my father-in-law had unfortunately passed away three weeks ago, but we were in his attic and he had 63 Huntsman suits that they could then pass on to their grandson. And it's all those pieces that when you have something that's made with quality, made with the top level of craft, you can pass it down. Shape, bearing of someone's body,
Yeah, and I think the other thing, I think that's remarkable. It's one of the things I love about Savile Row and this level of craft. But the other thing here is, much like Parmigiani Fleurier, the goal when a Huntsman client walks in is to find the best possible way to allow them to express themselves, to flatter their figure. Yeah. There's so much artistry in the process of fitting and cutting and figuring out what silhouette is right for a client. Excuse me. And even little things like, again, to come back to, the earlier example, the subtle difference in the way the gorge line on my lapel is cut versus yours, for example, creates a different kind of visual illusion and draws the eye in different directions. All that kind of magic that's going on, I find so compelling and so fascinating, and it's all craftsman's hand and eye. Yeah,
and I think it also reflects in things like the sleeve head. Mm-hmm. A sleeve head on your jacket will be a lot more pronounced than mine, but it's not saying that we couldn't get there. I have a wider shoulder. Would I want a very pronounced sleeve head? So I think it plays reference to the body shape, and really importantly what you said and about personalities and how you wear your watches. I would never want to look like I've been dressed. We always want our customers to look like they've dressed themselves. So if someone comes in and says, dress me for a black tights here, and you put them in some wood grain green dinner suit and all their life they've only ever wore black, and he pulls up in a Porsche, it's going to look like he's having a midlife crisis. So I think it's all those little pieces that are really important, that you really understand your customer and you make sure that they never look like they've walked into a wardrobe and just been told to wear this. And I think that's the hard part that I find in fashion. I go to so many of these fashion events and I'll be told quite boring because I wear a white silk jacket in the summer and I wear black in the winter. And that for me is just sticking to the guidelines, and the guidelines are so important for us.
There's something so satisfying about a uniform though. I mean, there are characters we know of, I mean, Steve Jobs, you know, being one that comes to mind immediately, just that sense of relief that you have, because you've got your uniform on, you know what it is, you feel comfortable in it, you feel safe in it. In many ways, that's what a great watch is. It's that sense of comfort, security. You don't even think about it. You pick it up from the side of your bed, and it's on.
And this is, I think, where that point about subtlety and nuance of kind of taste and design comes in, right? Because someone who hasn't been through that process of understanding the classic codes of menswear, or who hasn't kind of done their 10,000 hours on it, might look at someone in a cream dinner jacket in the summer and go, oh, that's a bit dull, why isn't it pink or blue? But actually, if you know, you know, and it's the same thing with beautiful watches, if you know, you know, tiny nuances are so expressive. And actually there's a real, I think, a real beauty in subtlety of expression, and in having the confidence to be subtle in the way you express yourself.
And I was just going back to black tie, I had a dilemma. I was in Qatar, and I had a watch with me, and it had a navy strap on it. Fortunately enough, there was an authorised dealer to get me a black strap for it for the night. I would have just not worn a watch. And if you're wearing a black dinner suit, you can't wear a navy strap. And I think it's all of those pieces that play hand in hand. And going back to uniform, you can't go wrong. If you have that strict guideline, I hate dress codes nowadays when you get told, also, I've got one tomorrow night, it's no dress code, just rhythm. And it's like, okay, what's that? Is that my gym gear? Right? I actually don't know. And I think it's so important that we have these, and the rules are the same within watches.
I think what you said is very true. You don't want to dress a person, you want to understand a person, and the acquaintance with the style it makes the allure of the person. So you cannot fake it. You have to own it. It's I always say it also on a watch. I divide the customers in two: those who wear the watches, those who are worn by the watches. It's a big difference. The hype that you have around the category has been on being worn by something. You are defined by these 4 centimeters, which is exactly the opposite of what luxury is about. Luxury is about understanding, as we said before. So you feel at ease with something if you fully own it as a person, as a personality first. No? And yes, you can have a uniform that's conforming to codes, no? And the execution of the uniform makes the sophistication. But you also can have choices that are more personal, and those choices are the ones who are probably on less people, because much more people want to fit in terms of understanding their place in society. Others want to stand out. But if you want to stand out, it's a very slippery line. Very slippery. So to stand out with taste is a gift. It's a gift that you can cultivate, because you can educate yourself through maturity. I'm not talking about age. I'm talking about maturity in understanding what luxury is about. You can be brought up in an entourage which you feel these values already at 20 years old, or even before. So, and that's the beauty of being personal, expressing yourself. And that is what life should be about. No? You are there in the world.
Do you need to have owned a lot of watches and owned a lot of jackets to fully understand what that is for you?
I think it's a question of values before the object you're buying. And I think it goes beyond the category. It's transversal to the personality of the person. It goes into dining, it goes into cars, it goes into anything that you're buying. It goes into how you travel. I mean, things that are intangible. No? A perfume. You don't see a perfume. You smell a perfume. But what is it?
I think it's also...
Is it right for you? Is it right for the occasion? I mean,
I totally agree with you, Guido. I think it's a brilliant point. And I think that it's also about synthesizing all these different passion points to interact with on two different levels. One, which we sort of spoke a little bit about earlier, is the instinctive response. I'm engaged with a beautiful watch for the first time. How does it make me feel? Am I responding to this aesthetically? Do I appreciate and understand what's happening mechanically and on the craft level here? And does it resonate with me? But you've also, I think, got to encourage yourself to think a level deeper and think critically about all these wonderful things that we interact with, because the process of refining your own sense of taste, I think, it does require critical thinking. You have to consciously go, I've tried this, I liked it, but actually I don't feel like it's completely 100% authentically myself. I'm not going to do that again. Maybe I'll do this, and whether it's tailoring or watchmaking or cigars or wine or whatever.
What I'll never understand is someone a client who doesn't want to dive deeper. Because for me, coming into this environment, I want to know that history and I want to know how this has been made. I want to know the details. I want to dive into that. For me, to walk in and just come out with a Parmigiani would be half the fun. Yeah. And that's.
But I think
if I may add on what you're saying, because it's very interesting, I don't think it has to be all thinked. It's something that is also instinctive, no? Because
definitely,
when you go into the values of a person, they become so deep that you don't really think. You just end up mixing and matching something that makes sense, and that is that tipping point. That's what we call private luxury, because private luxury has always been there. Okay, and it's that tipping moment in life, in maturity, not in age, as I said before, where you understand that what is cool is what you like, not what society wants you to wear. Okay,
yes,
that is a critical defining moment for a Parmigiani customer. It's also your suit. It's not written, branded everywhere what it is. You don't need to brand it.
Well, you feel it. Our labels are in the pockets.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's part of in the know to know. If somebody recognizes it, it's because it's educated eye to recognize it, and there you have a conversation. If somebody doesn't know what you're wearing, it doesn't matter. I don't care.
I completely agree.
Which pocket?
I completely agree.
Mine's right side.
Can you choose?
You can choose.
You can choose. Yeah,
but we put it in the right side. It's got the date it was made, the cutter, the coat maker, and then on the trousers you'll have the cutter and the trouser maker. And that consistency stayed the same. So I don't know if it's similar in watchmaking, but Guido came and commissioned the suit, and Campbell was his cutter, and then David was his coat maker, and Norma was his trouser maker. Throughout his life cycle with Huntsman, so long as they are here, only those people will make his garments for consistency, because it's a handmade garment. Everything changes in a stitch. No one can create the same handmade stitch for every single piece of garment. So we have to have that consistency right the way through. From whether you order one suit to 100 suits, that capacity stays right the way the same. An operational nightmare, but it's just what it is. And I think we're so lucky in the environment that we're in. We'd have to take clients, customers, and press to the manufacturer. We're lucky that we are shop and manufacturer on site. So you walk into the store, you meet your cutter, you meet your coat maker, you meet your trouser maker, you come back upstairs and you can be in the club room and have lunch. That's quite a unique, special luxury environment. And when you talk about private luxury, that's exactly...
Can I ask about comfort and wearability for you at Huntsman? Because for me, I know I wear the stuff that I feel most comfortable in over and over again, and it's the same for watches. Inherently, tailoring is not necessarily the most comfortable. The perception is it's not the most comfortable thing.
Yeah.
But how do you square that away for someone coming in saying, you know what, for me the most important thing is I want to feel good in it, but I want to feel comfortable.
I've been here 7 years. I don't remember a customer saying he was uncomfortable in his suit. And I think that's the most. If it's something is made correctly, when we talk about education as a word that sometimes is frowned upon, but we really have to educate our customers in suits, because they might be coming from an aspirational perspective and have been wearing a suit the wrong way from other brands because it's slim fitting, it looks great. They walk in, make me look like James Bond, and they show you a picture, or make me look like this. Social media's really corrupted the way people dress now, because they think something looks great on someone, but it doesn't look great on them. So we really have to educate a customer that a high armhole actually gives you functionality. I'm sat here with my jacket done up, with zero restrictions. I could type on a keyboard and do whatever. Other suit brands won't do that, because what they do is they create an armhole that is for the universe and works for most people. It's all those shapes, shifting, pattern making to make that suit fit and be comfortable for someone is key. Everyone talks about the jacket. I don't know if you agree as well, Alex, but for me it's the trouser. And having a trouser that's made changes everything. And we have it with so many customers getting in and out of cars. They're either driven or they're driving on the weekend. Getting in and out of a low car or a high car with a trouser that doesn't fit is going to rip. With a trouser that fits properly, a high-waisted trouser and properly fitting into the crotch.
Isn't it funny? No one ever talks, at least in my world, no one ever talks about the trouser. And I, as a consumer, I'm so much more fixated on the jacket. It's a bit like straps and buckles, often missed as the sort of afterthought, but actually so important from a wearability perspective. I've just got to touch on the fact that this bracelet, when I put this on, it sold me immediately when I put that bracelet on, because the comfort, the ergonomics on that shape, in my mind, were the main reason I wanted to walk away with it, because I knew I'd wear it.
This is that lovely kind of point and parallel in it being proportion almost being so critical, right? I thought that your point earlier, Guido, about size is size, but really it's about proportionality was sort of really astute.
That's fascinating, because often so we're thinking about like icons in the watch world. The sizing now, they're offered in 34 millimeters, they're offered in 38 millimeters, they're offered in 41 millimeters, and all that's happened is that the proportion has been adjusted. So it should work for you, irrelevant.
When you talk about comfort, if a bracelet is able to do this,
incredible.
And then, I mean, it's a second skin.
Yeah. So
comfort is part of our world. You don't wear a shoe that hurt you. You don't wear a costume, a suit that is uncomfortable. A watch, you have to wear it on effortlessly. And I mean, the weight of the watch. If the watch head is too heavy, it will be totally unwearable. And when you're able to do this, and the watch doesn't drop, it's really a testimony that the balance of the watch head and the total fit of the watch is there to be worn. It's like what you said before, and it's really part of how you design things. The lugs should never touch your skin. The lugs should be elevated, so the watch sits on its glass, on its crystal. That's like the shoulders for a jacket. Okay. So that has to carry the weight. And if the lugs are going too down, they will touch your skin, they will be unwearable. We are not perfect bodies. I might have a bone sticking out, you might be done differently.
Talk for yourself.
It's really part of how the watch has to adapt to the body. It's not vice versa. So when you have semi-rigid bracelets, for instance, that they don't bend and the links arrive to a certain point and then they collide, you are designing an arch, and that is the arch designed by a designer. You take a statistical curve of a wrist population and you define that curve is enough. But then your watch moves on your body, and sometimes you need to bend that angle. And semi-rigid bracelets, they detach themselves from your body in a certain moment, or they're less comfortable. But when these two links touch each other, we are men, we have hair. Sometimes you can pull a hair. So you have 0.35 mm between a link and the other for that reason. So your skin, your hair is not pulled into the bracelet. So these are all things that are overlooked because you cannot describe comfort. You have to feel comfort. That's it. So when you wore the watch for the first time, you were hooked.
Exactly.
Because it felt like a second skin.
Now, Guido, we've got people knocking at the door. They're queuing to get into this place. They're queuing to get in. So we have to wrap. Plus, we could be here for many, many more hours. And I often say that, don't mean it, but I genuinely mean we could be here for more hours. Final word from both of you, because you're custodians of brands that have amazing history, amazing heritage, but you're playing in a modern landscape. You've got guys rocking up with T-shirts, wearing a jacket. Now that's a new landscape. You've got guys changing straps left, right, and centre, and so how do you honour the heritage while still maintaining that relevancy in a modern era? Just a final word, nothing too convoluted. Just your overarching thought on how you maintain that relevance in the modern world.
I think it's a time and a place, and I'm not against the T-shirt with a jacket because I do it myself, but I think there is a time and a place for it, which is why we offer T-shirts now.
Fantastic. Christ almighty, I'll be downstairs in an instant. Different colours?
Yeah, we do.
Good,
but I think it's just more of a case of if you are to go into a boardroom, don't do it in a T-shirt. And I know there's this saying of you can the most important person in the room is the person who wears whatever he likes, however it's worded. I disagree. I think there's nothing more elegant and nothing more powerful than a man or a woman in a suit, 2-piece, 3-piece with a shirt and tie. For me, that is just the absolute benchmark for anything. And like I said, it's time and a place. If you're saying you want a tweed jacket to go to the pub on the weekend, by all means, wear a roll neck, wear a t-shirt. There's no kind of rules behind that.
Can we just, Benoit, can you just come on screen here? Because this man has been behind the scenes. Can we just quickly have a look at this suit of this man? He's, you know, like those breakfast shows in the morning that we've had the model, he's been wearing this. It's a travesty that this man does not get on camera before we end this film, because this is a joy to behold, right? You know, visually,
I walked up this morning and he was wearing a tie-pin and I was like,
I was from Parmigiani, so it's just fantastic. I had to get you on. Guido, final word on honouring heritage in a modern landscape.
Innovation in watchmaking is a very tricky word. Technically, a watch has a life cycle which is infinite. Some brands have watch designs that are still selling over 100 years in a row. Mechanics is part of the equation. There were innovation like quartz, 10 times cheaper, more precise, not interesting, didn't make it. The Apple Watch came in Basel 2015. It was supposed to be the revolution. We're kicking out Switzerland from business. There was even a gold item in 2015. $20,000 of an iWatch in gold. It lasted less than a cat on a highway. I mean, it's because it doesn't make. But that doesn't mean that those are parallel business. So innovation, you can do anything. You put it on the wrist. It doesn't mean because it's a watch, it's competing. High horology has never been as big as in these years. After welcoming all of 300 million, I don't know how many pieces of smartwatches you have every year sold. So innovation has to play the rules of the art of mechanics. A bit like in menswear, you have traditional, the cuts, you have all what is the ergonomicity of a body that evolves. You were talking about how small people were 100 years ago. It's
just behind you.
It's totally different, no? But still, you keep up to the pace of society. So in the same thing in that luxury, which is at the frontier of luxury, it's not the luxury that builds the business of luxury. To build a big business, you have to go mainstream. So the more you homologate, the more you sell. But this creates a counter trend of de-homologation. And that is what we are looking for. So de-homologation is part of evolving, also pushing your customer to evolve too, because that's luxury is about elevation in the end. Personal elevation, cultural elevation, education, and everything that brings to the table something that pushes us forward, whether it's a technical innovation like the GMT Rattrapante, world premieres that we do, way of inventing functions in a different way. That's one side of the play. The other side is the aesthetic. So we try to use the ingredients in a way which is Parmigiani, but it's in a way that is also thinking about a societal evolution.
Just a couple more bits, sorry. I know you want to wrap up, but you mentioned innovation and tradition. So our chairman has a saying, which is really important, and it's tradition is merely innovation that lasted. And I think when we talk about tailoring, the two-piece suit has always been the foundation of everything. The t-shirt, that will slowly disappear, and I think you'll start to see the shirt come back in real abundance in so many different forms, whether it's from a cloth perspective or a design perspective. You now see the camp collars being worn with suits quite often. So I think all of those pieces play together. Are there any movements or complications that were introduced and phased out for a particular reason?
Well, we introduced new functions that play the game of purity of the function, because the GMT Rattrapante, for instance, is a GMT that is not saying that you're a traveler when you're not traveling. When you're at home, you don't need a GMT. So when you
the GMT hides behind
GMT
the other hand, so it's visually interesting.
It gives you a second time zone, but when you're at home, the two hands you don't see it.
Okay.
You don't have a colored bezel day and night, nothing. But then when you are traveling, you have a flawless experience. Yeah. And we reinvented the way of doing a GMT with a function that was taken from a chronograph and put on a hour hand. It's called a rattrapante. It's what in English that's called the split second function. Yeah. In French it's called rattrapé, which is reuniting the hands. That is an innovation. There are functions that are there for the beauty of the functions. Complications are such. No? So certain complications are evergreens, a perpetual calendar, a minute repeater, things like this. Then the way you couple them, the way you display the information. For instance, our perpetual calendar we launched this year is breaking the rules of a busy dial. Having a perpetual calendar with only 2 counters, extremely pure, simplifies the complication in a way that purity comes back into the play, and you go and repair easily the hour and minute hand to tell what time it is, and you have the second degree of information, the perpetual. So it's a way of designing the display of the time in a way that is complementing the style that we were saying before. So innovation and design, before knowing in which watch case you're going to put that move, and you're already putting a statement of design and where the pivots are out, how big the counters will be, and these are.
But interestingly, I don't think there's been a complication that's been discontinued over time that was in fashion at one point and no longer. Gents, we've got to get a photo of Aleks behind us on this wallpaper, so we need to we need to wrap there. But thank you so much for your time. It was such a treat. Guys, in the comments, for crying out loud, leave us your thoughts. I know there's going to be plenty. Thank you, gents. Thank you so much.
Thanks, it's been a pleasure.